You know, the great thing about football is sharing the game with guys that love it. You know, when you get on a coaching staff, the most important thing I thought I had to do was hire a great staff. And if you can get like-minded guys that really believe in what we're selling, or you don't have a guy that's a tight end coach going down there complaining about the game plan, or you don't have a running back coach complaining because we're throwing it too much. When you get a group of guys that are really excited about going downstairs and presenting the game plan, and that's when you really got something. And those staffs are hard to find right now. I think sometimes you get a little mixed feeling about what we're doing, and I think it reflects sometimes in the way you play. I am Jon Gruden, and I am coached to win.
My next guest is Jon Gruden. Jon Gruden was born into coaching. Now, since this guy was a kid, there was nothing that he wanted to do or be, and he's been working on it his entire life. When some people think about Jon Gruden, they think of this driven, tough as nails football coach. You know, the guy walking down the sideline trying to intimidate all the other players. Like, he's always upset when a play doesn't work. Or you may recognize him as his fun-loving, charismatic sports commentator with all the cool one-liners. Who remembers Spider 2Y Banana? That one's a classic. However you remember Jon Gruden, the one thing that I took out of this interview with him was how much he loves football, like every single aspect of it. You're going to hear a lot of great stories about Bobby Knight, Joe Montana, and Al Davis. So here are my 3 coaching points. Here are the things that I took from this interview. Here's the first one. Be loyal to your profession. What is the Gruden rule? And why does Jon Gruden think Randall Cunningham is his biggest failure as a head coach? This one was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it. Here's Jon Gruden. Hey, before we even start, you have to there's not a chance in hell that you remember this. But I think when you called me last week, I was at the grocery store. And my parents just happened to be in town, and I was in the grocery store talking to you. And my parents were like, "Oh, what took you so long?" You know, I just went in there for ground beef or something like that because we were making tacos. And I was like, "Oh, hey, that was Jon Gruden. He just agreed to come on the show. This is awesome. I'm so excited." "Oh, Jon Gruden, that's my guy." My mom was recounting a story about when one of the Super Bowls that I played in, she actually met you along with my sister and my dad. And she talked about how you talked to them for at least 20 minutes and how you were the greatest guy. And I was like, hold on. I think you're confusing Jon Gruden with some other Jon Gruden. I'm not sure the actual Jon Gruden was entertaining you for 20 minutes at a Super Bowl. But she swore up and down it was you, that you were just talking about football and this and that and everything that went into it. And I was like, wow, that was pretty impressive. I have a hard time believing you remember that.
Well, I've had a lot of water go under my bridge, but I do remember spending a lot of time with different people talking about football. I'm not as bad a guy as people think. I enjoy meeting people, especially parents of athletes, guys that have a lot of stake in the game. So I'm sure when I was doing my ESPN Super Bowl round, I'm sure I did meet your parents.
Why do you get this persona that you're not liked as a coach? Where does that come from? Because I see it totally differently.
I don't know. I got a lot of passion for football, and I'll do anything I have to do to try to win. I love to compete. And sometimes maybe I rub some people wrong, but that's life.
Yeah, let's talk about that passion, because I want to know where it came from. Obviously, if people don't know, if they're watching this for the first time and they don't know anything about you, I mean, you come from a football family. Your dad was a coach for years. You guys lived a nomadic life, traveling, moving all over the country. And he coached at Indiana. He coached at Notre Dame under Dan Devine. He coached in Tampa. He went to San Francisco. What was that like, being a son of a coach?
Well, that's why I love football so much. I grew up in the locker room with the players. I remember throwing 7-on-7 ball drills and all kind of different things with players. I got to play catch with Joe Montana when I was a junior in high school. Hearing the Notre Dame fight song, seeing your dad come out there in the tunnel against USC, it gets your blood pumping, man. But I was a small college Division III quarterback. I wasn't even good enough to play there. So nothing came easy to me. I wasn't a first round pick. I didn't get myself into the business at the top of the food line, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, and every coach that I talk to has this crazy, difficult, unimaginable story about their journey to becoming a head coach. And whenever I talk to a coach, I always wonder what was in them that convinced them that this is what they want to do, and therefore they were willing to withstand the long hours, the no pay, the constant living in, uncertainty of where the next job was going to be, how you were going to raise some money, and if somebody was going to take you seriously. What was it about the coaching that just kept you driven to be a head coach?
Well, my mom was an elementary school teacher. I called her a Hall of Fame elementary school teacher. She really enjoyed seeing her students get better. As soon as they got an 80%, she would tell them, come in early in the morning, we'll get 90 next week. Then as soon as they got 90, she said, come in after school, we'll get them all right. But there's something about helping a player get better, being a part of a team, just helping guys further their careers, get better, and beat the other guy. If you're not good enough to play, you got to find something else to scratch that itch. And all I ever wanted to do was be a quarterback coach. That's what my dad encouraged me to do. So I tried to be around the best quarterback guys I could be around. And fortunately, some of my dad's connections got my foot in the door, but some of those guys beat me up pretty good along the way.
Hold on. Before we go any farther, make sure you click that subscribe button real quick and turn on your notifications. All right, here we go. Back to the show. Yeah, you definitely earned your stripes. And I want to go back to your mom and dad, because when I think about you personally, you actually have the perfect mix of what would go into being a good coach. Your mom was a teacher. She was teaching young kids. She was trying to find maybe creative ways to explain certain problems to them. And she probably had a lot of patience with young kids. And then your dad was not only a scout, he was a coach, and he had all these great players that he was around at great universities. Those two things combined probably obviously had a lot to do with the way you are today.
No doubt. And they both encouraged me and my other two brothers to find our passion and go for it. My older brother, Jim, was a valedictorian in high school, number one in his class at Notre Dame. He's a radiologist now. And they encouraged him to go for it. And then when I came along, I was a 2.2 student. Everybody thought I had problems, but they knew I wanted to be a coach. And my dad warned me. He said, you get in this business, you're going to have to move around. You're going to have to start at the very bottom. But they supported me and they pushed me. And fortunately, I was able to have a couple parents that were always there for me when I called and I needed something.
Do you remember anything like taking rides with your dad, going to practice, being a gopher, doing all the little things just to kind of be able to earn your worth and stick around with the team? Do you remember anything that he said to you that kind of stuck with you?
Just to have mental toughness. He said the mental toughness is what you got to have in this thing, and find a routine. Know what you're doing on Monday. Know what you're doing all the way up to kickoff time. Have a routine in the off season. Have a routine during the season, and outwork people. Be loyal. Work hard, and it'll take you a long way, because those are two qualities that people say they have, but it's hard to bring it every single day.
Would that be working hard and loyalty?
Yes.
Yeah, loyalty is always one that kind of interests me, because how do you prove it? How do you know somebody is loyal? How do you know a player is loyal? How do you know an assistant that is under you is loyal? How does that manifest itself in real time?
Well, it's a good question. I just think it's a word you got to keep at the forefront of your daily endeavors. You got to think about being loyal to your family, being loyal to your job, get up early, work hard, be loyal to your profession. And I'm not perfect. Look, I'm not claiming that, but I do think having a certain loyalty to relationships, to your job, to your family, to the man upstairs, I think are key ingredients in sustaining anything.
I want to stick with your childhood just for a second, because reading up on your life as a kid and growing up in South Bend, Indiana, and traveling around, and your relationship with your brothers, I was reading it laughing out loud, because so many of the things that happened with you happened with me. There's two things I want to just discuss. First of all, it is is the relationship with your brothers. Obviously, Jim being your older brother, now you being a middle child, and then your younger brother, Jay. Correct me if I'm wrong on this story. You used to beat the crap out of your younger brother, Jay. It was constant that you were just older, 3.5 years older than him. And finally, he got a little older, maybe a little wiser, maybe a little stronger. And then he kind of fought back enough where you decided that, okay, this is a bad decision to go after him. Am I correct on that?
It's pretty much accurate. My older brother beat me up, so I beat my younger brother up. And then one day my younger brother beat me up. So I was really in a hard place for a while.
The other thing I think is interesting, and I don't know if you remember this, we'll try you out. What is the Gruden rule with you and your brothers?
No hitting in the face. We did not hit in the face. Everything else was all go. And it was live. Man, it was live. We were in the front yard. I remember one day fighting. Cars are driving by. They're screaming at us, going to call the police. There were some body blows thrown that day.
Yeah, we had the same rule. We never coined a phrase for it, but it was an unwritten rule. And my brothers and I, we had the same fights. We had a fight one time where it probably lasted about an hour. My brother was a all-state wrestler, so he thought I was like his guinea pig test dummy, and he would constantly put me in these holes and challenge me to get out of it. And my aunts were called, relatives were called, and nobody could ever break us up. But the hitting in the face cracked me up because I think most brothers probably live by that credo. No hitting in the face. Everything else is fair game.
I think that's fair. The funny thing is what we fought about. We would fight about the remote. We would fight about things that really didn't matter. We fought for the sake of getting up and just fighting, I think. But I've really matured a lot since then.
Yeah, no, I think you're living the life of any guy who grew up in a competitive household like yours and has brothers. I think fighting was part of it. I haven't met anyone who isn't like that. So moving forward, when you go to college, you're playing quarterback, and then you decide you want to be a coach full time. How did you end up in San Francisco under George Seifert, Mike Holmgren? I think Ray Rhodes was there as well. How did you end up in San Francisco?
Well, I was a college coach. I had gone up to University of Pacific in Stockton, California.
Yep.
And my dad had been was a scout with the 49ers. They were having some pre-draft meetings, and he called me and he said, "Hey, Mike Holmgren is looking for a quality control coach." I didn't even know what a quality control coach was. I think.
Yeah. Can you explain what that is? Because I think most people don't know.
I think I was the first quality control coach hired in the NFL. A quality control coach is basically a glorified gopher. You break down tape. You might draw the plays in the computer. You distribute the game plans. You pick up the game plans. There's a litany of stuff you do. Come up with tendencies, analytics, all kind of stuff that fall into the quality control guy's lap. But I went down, interviewed, and that's how it all started for me. I'd been a GA at Tennessee for Johnny Majors and worked for Walt Harris, one of the hottest quarterback coaches in the country. I went with Walt Harris to Pacific. And when I got a chance to walk in the door with the 49ers with Holmgren and Joe Montana and Steve Young, it was awesome. Still the best year of my life was working for the 49ers in 1990.
I'm assuming those were, you said, one of the best times of your life. Just no kids, grinding away, learning as much as you possibly can, building relationships.
Yeah, I basically lived in the facility. I mean, I had a little apartment in Santa Clara, but the facility was so nice. 4949 Centennial Boulevard. I stayed in the office, and I'd go in there and get all the installation tapes over the years, and I'd make notes. I still have volumes and volumes of books of notes I took on all the cut-ups and all the installations of these great coaches getting it done. And that's what it was. It was discovering information. It was just so exciting to see the execution, the way they practiced. They were on the cutting edge in everything that they did, and they had great leadership on both sides of the ball and in the front office. It was awesome.
What is the coaching style like with Holmgren? What did you take from him? Because eventually Holmgren gets hired at Green Bay. You had left, you went back to college, and then Holmgren hires you as a full-time assistant with the Green Bay Packers. And Ray Rhodes is there. You had Mariucci was there. You guys had an unbelievable staff. What were you learning from a coaching standpoint, less about X's and O's, coach, more about how to handle people, how to develop players, and how to kind of create the right culture?
Well, Coach Holmgren, he had a great ability of taking things that were very complex and sophisticated and presenting it in a very simple, basic way so players could learn. New players coming in. Plus, he made things interesting for the guys that had heard the installation for 55 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He could mix up his drills. He was a creative guy, 25 words or less, too. He wouldn't ramble on, right to the point. And he had a great ability, I think, of getting excited when he had to be excited. You know, I mean, he got ticked off. He wore his emotions on his sleeve. I loved that about him. And he was honest as he could be. And he always challenged me to accumulate knowledge. He'd walk down the hallway, he'd look in the room, he'd see us. If you weren't studying, he'd come in and get on you, man. Go get me some knowledge now. The accumulation of knowledge is a powerful thing. And so is the accumulation of nothing. And that's basically a huge legacy that he left me. Try to outwork the other guy. It gives you a chance. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it gives you a chance.
So from there, Ray Rhodes gets the head coaching job in Philly, and you become a coordinator for the first time. Were you nervous before you spoke to the team? It's your first time, and I'm assuming a lot of those players didn't know a lot about you. You're an assistant coach. I think were you coaching the receivers, right? Because Andy Reid was coaching the tight ends, I think. You had a crazy staff. Mariucci coaching the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was a wide receiver coach for Green Bay Packers. And that's really why I left with Ray Rhodes. I wanted to coach the quarterbacks. And Mariucci had Brett Favre. He wasn't giving up those keys.
Yeah.
You know, Brett was just coming into his own. He was a superstar. We just got Reggie White. I think the year I went to Philadelphia, Green Bay won the Super Bowl. So I missed out on that unbelievable experience. But yeah, I was nervous. Heck, I was 31 years old. I think the only blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy on South Street in Philadelphia for about a month. You know, it was tough. It was a challenge. Hiring a staff, being a part of hiring a staff, working with Ray, and trying to put the West Coast offense in and try to reach Randall Cunningham, who still today is my greatest, I think, failure as a coach. I was unable to do the things I know now I wish I could have done then.
Why do you think just because you were young and didn't have the necessary tools to give them the right information? Is that how you see it?
Well, I was so excited about the West Coast offense. I had been in his chamber studying this offense, and I couldn't wait to bring it to Philadelphia. And we did some good things. Ray was coach of the year. We won a playoff game. I think we scored 55 points against the Lions, but we did it with Rodney Peete. And you know, I wasn't in the shotgun back then. I was never in the shotgun. And if we had known some of the things we know about these RPOs and zone reads, some of the things that we know now, had Randall Cunningham had a chance to do those things then, it would have been an unbelievable quarterback because that guy had it all.
I think the thing about the West Coast offense is out of all the offenses I've been in, that one was, I would say, the volume of plays that Mike would throw at us, especially early in camp. It was literally like drinking out of a fire hose, especially the first time you learned it. But after I learned it, I actually thought it was the easiest offense I had ever been in because the coach literally tells every single person what to do. And the quarterback has the hardest job because the play is so freaking long.
That's no doubt. I used to signal the plays. I can still remember 2 jet Dino Y shallow cross. I would signal the plays to Brett Favre, and that was before we had the quarterback to coach walkie-talkie. Brett had to memorize all the formations. Montana had to memorize everything. I remember going out to walkthroughs on Wednesday after this huge installation, and Joe would spit out every play verbatim. He had a photographic memory, but you're right. There's a lot of verbiage. That's why when I came back to coach the second time, I changed the terminology to try to abbreviate it a little bit.
The best asset I had is when Holmgren was in Seattle. Matt Hasselbeck, he brought Matt Hasselbeck over from Green Bay, and Matt was my roommate. And Holmgren's thing was, okay, he would like give you the formation and Matt had to give him the play, or vice versa. He would switch it. So I would test Matt the night before, and I became so, good at, everything about that offense. It was amazing. I was like, I would know that when they would call the play, as Matt was saying it, I was literally mouthing it in the huddle, waiting for him to get to my point, like Y hook. Okay, thank you, bye. And I would leave. So now at the age of 26, the Oakland Raiders and Al Davis decide to make you the youngest head coach in the NFL. How did that feel when you got that job? Take me back to when it was determined to say, listen, we're going to hire you.
Well, I had interviewed a couple times earlier, not gotten the job. And this time I went out, and the interview lasted for about a week. I mean, I was in a hotel for a week. They were asking me questions about personnel, training camp, scripts. I mean, you name it. Al Davis was in his prime at that time, and he had a fastball that went about 130 miles an hour. He could blow it by you. But it was a great experience. I got to meet a lot of the legendary players. I had a long history in loving the Raiders as a young kid. So it was a really cool opportunity, and I'm blessed to have had that. And Al Davis fast-tracked me. He helped me get to where I am. He had a lot to do with everything that happened to me.
Did he say anything to you right before you went out for your first practice? Any Al Davis words of wisdom?
Don't screw it up, Butch. Don't screw it up.
Yeah, I was literally thinking that. Al Davis, never met him, but he seems like a guy that would just say, hey, man, don't mess this up. And then, all right, go ahead, go do your job.
Unbelievable. If I could sit down with you and tell you some of the things the way he approached the draft, the way he looked at football, the vertical passing game, the running game, he knew punt protection. He walked in and tossed me the chalk. He said, show me the punt protection and teach me the calls. I'm like, what are you talking about? You have to know what you're talking about to sit in a room with Al Davis if you're going to be a coach for the Raiders, a scout for the Raiders, or even be a part of the Raiders. You got to love football. You got to know what the hell you're doing.
Isn't that also how you would gain respect from your team? The most basic thing a coach should have is knowledge of the game.
No doubt. And not just offensive knowledge. Get to know the defense, know what the defensive coordinator's doing. What blitz are we calling? Who's got the C gap? Who's got the quarterback? Who's got contain? What's the call on that punt protection if they overload us on the weak side? What happened on that kickoff return? The rules, personnel. Who's the third corner of the Chargers? How are we attacking them? I mean, it was awesome, and it broadened your perspective on everything. There aren't any guys I don't know today like Al Davis.
How is there a difference between how you coach Hall of Famers and the way you would coach, say, a John Ritchie, who was a fullback for you years ago?
Yeah, there's a big difference. I think that's just common sense. You got to earn players' respect, number one. Secondly, yes, you have to know what makes them tick. And certain guys have earned a certain level of respect. And you got to hold your horses a little bit when you're talking to Jerry Rice about running a route. Get to know their perspective, get a feel for how they saw it, because they can help you get better based on their experiences.
Let's say when a player comes in and says, I'm not playing enough, why are you holding me back?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. You have to state your opinion. Being honest, though, is the best, I think, message that any coach can have in that situation. Let them know how you see it. Maybe you're not practicing well. Maybe we see the other guy that's in front of you is better. But be encouraging. Hey, keep working. Pick it up a little bit, and I'll try to mix you in there. But you can't please everybody in this business. Everybody wants the ball. I've had guys scream about getting the ball more. Some guys, they, like you said, they want to start. They want to be in the game more. But bottom line is you got to do what you think is best for the team. And not always are you going to make all these players happy. I learned that from Bobby Knight when I was at basketball camp as a kid. My dad coached at Indiana, and I was in the 9th grade, and he called all the campers. All of us came up, about 600 kids. And the first thing Bobby Knight said is, how many of you guys play basketball? We all raised our hand. He said, how many of you guys don't like your coach? Most of us raised our hand. He goes, what makes you think your coach likes you? So that's part of this coach-player entanglement of emotions and all that stuff. We're we're not here to always see it exactly the same. There's going to be times where there's friction, and you got to try to continue to rely on your relationship and honesty, and just know you're not going to bat 1,000. You're going to make some mistakes.
After the Raiders, you end up in Tampa. And I always thought that, and that's where I first met you, I think, because when I took a free agent trip to Tampa the year before you guys won the Super Bowl, I think it was your first year, you had just gotten there. And you inherit a team that is filled with future Hall of Famers, especially on defense, lots of personality, lots of opinions. What was your approach in that situation? Tony Dungy leaves you this team. He leaves and goes someplace else. And you're kind of tasked with winning over this team that I think was pretty loyal to Tony Dungy. How did you convince this team that they should trust you?
Well, I was very respectful of what they had done in Tampa. At the same time, we kept Monty Kiffin and the defensive staff. All the Hall of Famers are on defense. And I let everybody know at the very beginning, and I just talked to Derek Brooks and Rondé the other night, we had a great defense, but we didn't have a great team in Tampa. We didn't have a great offense at all. We had a long way to go. And I challenged the defense, if you're so great, how about scoring some touchdowns to help the offense? And it ticked those guys off. And I said, score 9 touchdowns, intercept the pass and run it back for a touchdown, sack the quarterback, pick up the ball and run it in for a touchdown. And as soon as Dwight Smith intercepted Gannon in the Super Bowl for the last time, Sapp grabbed me and he said, you wanted 9 touchdowns? That's 9 touchdowns. But I think what we did is we raised the level of accountability on offense. Brad Johnson led the NFC in passing efficiency that year. And when he came back off his injury, he lit it up. I mean, he was a heck of a quarterback. But that was the big thing. We had a great defense, but not a great team. And to be a great team, we needed more from the defense, and our offense had to pick it up and hold their end of the bargain.
So how do you deal with the criticism or the opinions of others when a season isn't going quite as well as everybody outside the building thinks it should?
Well, I try not to listen to all the elevator music. That's another thing that Mike Holmgren taught us as young coaches. You worry about the things that you can control. Everybody's got an opinion. There's an analyst on every corner. Hell, I'm doing Gruden Loves Football. I got my own YouTube channel. I'm trying to analyze stuff. But, everybody's got an opinion. You're not always going to agree with it. I had guys say, your red zone offense is terrible. And I would say, what do you mean our red zone offense is terrible? Well, you're 25th in the league. I said, well, we took a knee to kick the field goal to go up by 2 possessions. We ran out the clock with those 2 possessions. So nobody really takes the time sometimes to get all the information, but the power of the pen is a powerful thing. That's why I don't spend a lot of time reading it, listening to it. I just try to come up with my own opinion and live by that.
Okay, so I want to quiz you real quickly. We call this the Coach to Win quiz. First time we've ever done it, by the way. And so I want to see how you're gonna if you'll humor me real quickly, okay? Because during your 15 years as a head coach, you had 11 of your assistants go on to be head coaches. Jon Gruden, can you name those 11 coaches?
Well, probably
That's a lot.
With Raheem and Tomlin and my brother Jay and McVay and Kyle, they were all there.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy worked with me in Pittsburgh. He was my GA. But Rod Marinelli became a head coach. Boy, I don't know how many I have right there.
Almost half. Nathaniel Hackett, Gus Bradley. Okay. Did you mention Sean McVay?
Yep.
Bill Callahan. Yep. Did you make Mark Trestman, the quarterback whisperer?
Yeah, that's right. We've had a lot of guys come through here. And, the great thing about football is sharing the game with guys that love it. When you get on a coaching staff, the most important thing I thought I had to do was hire a great staff. And if you can get like-minded guys that really believe in what we're selling, or you don't have a guy that's a tight end coach going down there complaining about the game plan, or you don't have a running back coach complaining because we're throwing it too much. When you get a group of guys that are really excited about going downstairs and presenting the game plan, and that's when you really got something. And those staffs are hard to find right now. I think sometimes you get a little mixed feeling about what we're doing. And I think it reflects sometimes in the way you play.
When it comes to being a coach, do you have three things that are the most important? If you were to teach this at a seminar, the three most important aspects of being a coach are?
Well, number one, you got to love it or don't get into it. You can't be half-hearted and be in this business. You got to love it, man. You got to really love it. You got to really want to teach, and you got to really want to continue to expand your knowledge. You got to adapt to different players, to different rules, to different opponents. You got to have the ability to adapt, but you got to love it, and you got to want to study it. And you can't look at it as if it's a job. And you got to be a people person. You got to be able to relate to these guys. I tried to stir the emotions every day. You'd walk in there, Christian, every once in a while, I try to make you laugh. I would really try to make you laugh. The next day, I'd really try to get under your skin, man, and tick you off. And then I might try to fire you up. I might try to really get you excited. Then I might, try to make you well up and cry a little bit. But I tried to just install 22 Hank with a little bit of, juice. And I think you got to do the preparation. And then preparation goes hand in hand with presentation. You got to go down there and teach it. A lot of guys might know it, but they can't teach it. They can't sell it. It's not just the plays. It's how you practice the plays. You got to stimulate these players. And some of these guys need a pat on the ass, and some of them need a good stiff kick in the ass once in a while. And you got to be able to do that whether you want to or not.